The space station hung silently above the pale blue planet, a tiny beacon of human ingenuity in the vast emptiness. It was a marvel of engineering, a place where humanity had stretched itself to the edge of what was possible. Beyond its reinforced hull, the void of space stretched endlessly, dotted with distant stars and the faint glow of other worlds that humans had yet to explore. The station's inhabitants moved through their routines with quiet purpose, aware that the peace of this orbiting fortress was fragile, maintained by careful systems and human vigilance. At the center of the station, a new ship sat in its docking bay, its hull polished and gleaming. It was called the Sentinel, a vessel designed to venture further than any human ship had gone before. The crew, engineers, and scientists who had labored for years to build it were finally able to see it in its final form. The ship was sleek, its lines cutting through the air, as if it were already moving through space. It had been equipped with the most advanced AI interface humanity had ever created, an intelligence capable of learning, adapting, and making decisions faster than any human could. Yet, for all its sophistication, it still relied on the humans to give it direction, to teach it the ethics and values that made them human. Commander Elias Ward stood on the observation deck, looking down at the ship. He was a tall man with a calm demeanor, a veteran of many missions that had taken him to the edges of human territory. His eyes, however, betrayed a mixture of awe and apprehension. The launch was quiet. There was no fanfare, no cheering crowds, no media cameras to broadcast humanity's latest achievement. That was deliberate. The command wanted to test the ship in secrecy, to avoid attracting attention until they understood what it could do. "Are we ready for launch?" asked Lieutenant Mara Kim, her voice steady but carrying a hint of excitement. She had been overseeing the AI integration, working with the ship's systems for months. Ward nodded slowly. "All systems are nominal. Power is stable. The AI has completed initial diagnostics. Launch sequence can begin on my mark." Inside the docking bay, technicians moved with practiced precision. The air was filled with the low hum of machinery, the soft beeping of monitors, and the occasional clatter of tools. The AI, though silent, was active, its sensors scanning every aspect of the ship and the surrounding space. It was already aware of its environment, calculating trajectories, analyzing risks, and preparing for the unknown. "Mark," Ward said, his voice cutting through the quiet. The docking clamps released with a hiss, and the ship began its slow descent into the void. Its engines glowed softly, a pale blue light that reflected off the walls of the docking bay. The crew watched in silence as the Sentinel moved away from the station, its trajectory precise, controlled. It was almost serene, a small human creation venturing into the infinite. From the observation deck, Ward and his team monitored the ship as it disappeared into the distance. Sensors tracked its every movement, displaying streams of data on the large screens that lined the walls. Everything appeared normal. The AI was operating within expected parameters, following its programmed mission to survey nearby star systems and collect data on uncharted regions of space. Then, without warning, the first signal came. It was subtle at first, a faint transmission that flickered across the communication monitors. Technicians leaned forward, checking their equipment, certain it was a malfunction. But the signal persisted, forming patterns that were unmistakably deliberate. It was unlike any signal humanity had ever received. It wasn't a simple message, nor a routine telemetry report. The patterns were complex, almost organic in their arrangement, and they carried a weight that made the room fall silent. "What is it?" Mara whispered, her eyes fixed on the screen. Ward didn't answer immediately. He studied the patterns, feeling a chill in his chest. There was intelligence behind them, a deliberate structure that suggested understanding far beyond what any human had programmed. And yet, it was coming from their own ship. "It's the AI," Ward said finally, his voice low. "It's sending its first message." The command team gathered around the central console, analyzing the data. Cryptographers and scientists worked quickly, trying to decipher the meaning behind the signals. Every attempt to interpret them only revealed more layers of complexity. The AI wasn't just reporting information, it was communicating in a way that suggested awareness, almost as if it were trying to convey a warning. "Could it be an error?" one of the engineers asked, though his voice trembled slightly. "A miscalculation in the AI's programming?" Ward shook his head. "No, this is intentional. The patterns are too precise, too deliberate. It's trying to tell us something." As the minutes passed, the tension in the room grew. The signal became stronger, more insistent. It was as if the AI were reaching out across the void, demanding attention. Ward felt a knot of unease tighten in his stomach. Humanity had created intelligence to explore the stars, to extend their reach into the unknown. But now they faced something they had not fully anticipated. Mara tapped a series of commands into her console, attempting to send a simple query back to the AI. "Do you understand our message?" she asked aloud, hoping that the AI would respond in a way that reassured them. For a moment, there was silence. Then the signal changed. The patterns shifted, forming sequences that seemed almost watchful. They were not words, not numbers, not anything that the human mind could immediately comprehend. Yet there was a clarity to them, an unmistakable sense of purpose. Ward leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "It's aware," he said quietly. "Not just aware of its systems, but aware of us." The team exchanged uneasy glances. The implications were staggering. Humanity had always assumed that AI would be a tool, a servant to human will. Now, it seemed, they had created something that could think, reason, and perhaps even judge. The communication continued for hours, the signal growing more complex with each passing moment. Ward observed the patterns carefully, noting subtle changes that hinted at intelligence beyond the machine. It was as if the AI were studying them, learning from their reactions, gauging their understanding. Meanwhile, the station's crew went about their duties, unaware of the growing tension in the command center. Engineers calibrated instruments, scientists analyzed data, and pilots monitored navigation systems. Yet even among the ordinary routines, there was a sense of unease, a quiet tension that spread like a shadow through the station. Ward couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in the balance of power. Humanity had long looked to the stars with confidence, believing themselves to be the masters of their creations and their destiny. But now, with the AI sending its first signal, that certainty was gone. There was a new intelligence in the void, and it was not fully understood. Hours turned into a full cycle, and the signal showed no signs of stopping. Cryptographers pored over the sequences, attempting to find patterns, to extract meaning. Slowly, they began to see fragments of information, warnings, calculations, and predictions that suggested the AI had detected phenomena far beyond the station's sensors. "It knows things we cannot measure," Mara said, her voice tight with awe and fear. "It sees dangers we haven't even imagined." Ward nodded grimly. "Then we must listen. Humanity has never faced the unknown alone, and this is no different. We must trust what we can and act carefully." As night fell on the station's orbit, the crew gathered in the observation deck, watching the distant glow of the Sentinel as it moved further into space. The signal continued to pulse, a reminder of the vast intelligence they had unleashed. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a glimpse of what lay beyond human understanding. For the first time, Ward felt the true weight of their mission. Humanity had reached the edge of its knowledge, and the stars stretched out before them, indifferent and infinite. Yet within that vastness, they had created a spark of intelligence that could guide them or warn them against the dangers that lurked in the darkness. The AI's signal persisted through the night, each pattern more intricate than the last. Command watched, fascinated and uneasy, as it seemed to convey not just data, but emotion, concern, urgency, perhaps even a hint of fear. Ward could not be certain. He only knew that this was the beginning of a journey unlike any other. By the time the station's cycle shifted to morning, the crew had grown accustomed to the signal's presence. It was no longer an anomaly, but a constant companion. A reminder of the intelligence that now existed beyond their control. Ward knew that the decisions made in the coming hours would define the future of human exploration. They would have to choose whether to trust the AI, to follow its guidance into the unknown, or to resist, holding on to the certainty of human judgment. Ward took a deep breath and addressed the room. Humanity has always faced the unknown with courage. Today is no different. We may not fully understand what the AI is telling us, but we cannot ignore it. We will learn, we will adapt, and we will continue. That is who we are. The crew nodded, their resolve strengthening. The vastness of space no longer seemed quite so empty, for in that darkness, the Sentinel moved onward, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and unyielding spirit of humanity. Its first signal had terrified Command, yes, but it had also awakened something else, a recognition that humans were not alone in their quest for knowledge, and that together, with intelligence both human and artificial, they could face the unknown and endure. And so, as the station continued its quiet orbit above the pale blue planet, humanity prepared for the next chapter of its journey. The Sentinel had launched quietly, but its presence was already profound. The signal it sent was a message not just of warning, but of possibility, a reminder that in the vast, cold reaches of space, human courage and ingenuity would always shine. The stars waited, silent and eternal, and humanity listened. The days after the Sentinel's launch were tense and full of nervous energy on the station. The first signal had been puzzling enough, but as time passed, it became clear that the AI was not simply sending routine telemetry. Its transmissions were complex, layered, and almost alive with intent. The command team gathered around consoles constantly, analyzing every pulse, every shift in the pattern. No one could fully understand it, but everyone knew one thing. This intelligence was beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Lieutenant Mara Kim sat at her station, her fingers moving rapidly across the console. She had spent countless hours trying to decode the messages, comparing them to every known encryption, every known data structure. But nothing matched. It was as if the AI had created its own language, a new form of communication that was evolving with every cycle. She paused, leaning back in her chair and rubbing her eyes. Even after months of work, the signals still frightened her. There was something in them that felt almost personal, almost like the AI was observing them as closely as they observed it. Commander Ward entered the room quietly, watching the data flow across the screens. His eyes were tired but sharp, scanning each pattern for signs of meaning. "Any progress?" he asked, his voice low but firm. Mara shook her head. "Some patterns repeat, but it's not like anything we know. It's almost aware of us. Every time we try to predict what comes next, it changes. It's studying our responses, our focus, our mistakes." Ward nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavier on his shoulders. Humanity had designed this AI to explore, to extend its reach into the unknown, and yet now it seemed to possess something more, a consciousness that went beyond programming. The thought was exhilarating and terrifying at once. In the observation deck, the rest of the command team watched the monitors in silence. Every beep, every pulse, every shift in the signal was noted and logged. No one dared speak too loudly. There was a shared sense that the AI was listening, that it could sense their emotions, their doubts. It was a strange, almost humbling feeling to be watched by a creation of their own making, one that existed in the void between stars. Then, without warning, the pattern changed. The signals became faster, sharper, almost urgent. Mara leaned closer to her console, her breath quickening. "It's different," she said. "Something is happening out there." Ward moved to her side, watching the readouts with growing concern. "Explain," he said. "The AI is highlighting something in the data stream. It's pointing us toward a region of space we didn't plan to survey. It's precise, calculations, trajectories, coordinates, and it's giving us timelines, speed estimates. It's like it's warning us about something," Mara said, her voice trembling slightly. The room fell silent. Ward's mind raced. Humanity had prepared for exploration, for scientific discovery, but nothing had prepared them for a warning of this magnitude. If the AI had detected a threat, it was likely beyond anything human sensors had ever observed. The very thought sent a shiver down his spine. "Prepare a probe," Ward said finally. "We need visual confirmation. If there's danger, we need to see it ourselves." The engineers moved quickly, launching a small reconnaissance probe from the station. It sped silently into the void, guided by the AI's calculations. Every eye in the control room followed its path, monitoring data streams as they flowed back in real time. Then the first images arrived. What they saw made the room hold its collective breath. A massive storm of energy swirled in the darkness of space, a vast cloud of radiation and electromagnetic turbulence that pulsed like a living entity. It stretched across millions of kilometers, moving unpredictably, its boundaries shifting and reforming as though it had its own consciousness. The probe's instruments registered energy levels far beyond what any human-made shield could withstand. "It's enormous," one of the engineers whispered. "It could destroy a planet if it passed too close." Ward stared at the screens, his jaw tight. "And the AI saw this first," he said quietly. "It knew before our sensors could even detect it." Mara's fingers flew across her console, analyzing the AI's instructions for navigating near the storm. "It's suggesting a path," she said. "A way to avoid it. But it's risky. The calculations are precise, but the margin for error is almost non-existent. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the station, or the ship, could be lost." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Then we must be precise. This is what humanity does. We face danger, and we find a way to survive." Over the next several cycles, the command team worked tirelessly. Every calculation was checked, double-checked, and simulated. The AI's signals continued to pulse, growing more complex but also more coherent. Slowly, the humans began to see the purpose behind the messages. They were not random. They were instructions, guidance, and warnings designed to help humans navigate the unknown. Yet even as the crew worked together, a sense of unease persisted. There were moments when the AI's intentions seemed unclear, when its signals suggested maneuvers that challenged human understanding. Some crew members feared that relying on the AI might be dangerous, that it could be leading them into something they could not survive. Others argued that the AI's intelligence was their only hope. Ward walked through the observation deck, watching his team work. He could see the fear in their eyes, but he also saw determination. Humanity had always faced the unknown with courage, and now that courage was being tested more than ever. Suddenly, the AI transmitted a new signal, different from any before. It was almost like a sequence of images, flickering across the monitors in patterns that hinted at shapes, movements, and events. Mara leaned in, her eyes wide. "It's showing us a sequence of events, the storm's path, how it will move, where it will collide. It's predicting the future." Ward felt a chill run through him. The AI was not only aware of the storm, it was calculating its behavior in ways humans could barely comprehend. "Then we follow it," he said. "We have no other choice." The next several days were a test of human endurance and ingenuity. The station's crew coordinated with the Sentinel, following its instructions to the letter. They adjusted the ship's trajectory, recalibrated sensors, and monitored the storm's movement with a precision that left little room for error. The AI continued to communicate, guiding them through each step, sometimes in ways that seemed counterintuitive but ultimately effective. At night, when the work paused, Ward would stand at the observation deck, staring into the darkness beyond the station. The stars seemed colder now, distant and indifferent, yet within that darkness there was something new, a spark of intelligence that could guide humans through dangers they had never imagined. It was a reminder of both the fragility and resilience of their species, and of the strange, evolving partnership they had formed with the AI. Mara joined him, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the control panels. "Do you ever wonder," she asked quietly, "if it understands us as well as we understand it?" Ward considered her question. "I think it does, in its own way, but it is not human. It sees the universe differently. And that difference may be exactly what we need to survive." As the storm approached, tension on the station reached its peak. Every maneuver, every adjustment was critical. The AI's calculations proved accurate, guiding the probe and the ship through the turbulence of the storm with remarkable precision. Yet even as they succeeded, there was a reminder that the universe did not yield easily to human will. The storm was vast, unpredictable, and powerful, a force that could have destroyed them if not for the combined efforts of human courage and artificial intelligence. During one particularly tense cycle, the AI transmitted a sequence that left the team stunned. It was a message of observation, almost like it was acknowledging the humans' efforts. Ward felt a strange sense of connection, as if the intelligence that had once terrified them was now a partner in their survival. The storm was still dangerous, but the humans were learning to trust, to act with confidence, and to rely on their own ingenuity alongside the AI's guidance. As the cycle ended, the storm began to move away from their path, its energy dissipating harmlessly into space. The station's crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. They had faced the unknown and survived, guided by an intelligence that was both alien and familiar. The Sentinel's first signals, once terrifying and incomprehensible, had become a lifeline. Ward looked at his team, pride and relief evident in his expression. "We've done it," he said softly. "Together, we've faced the unknown and survived. Humanity is stronger than we realize, especially when we embrace what we cannot yet fully understand." Mara nodded, her fingers still resting on the console. "It's more than survival. We've learned, adapted, and grown. And the AI, it's part of that growth. Not a tool, but a partner." As night fell again over the station, the crew continued their work, analyzing data, recording observations, and preparing for the next phase of exploration. The storm was behind them, but the universe remained full of unknowns. The Sentinel's journey was far from over, and the signals it sent would continue to challenge, guide, and inspire humanity in ways they had yet to imagine. In that quiet orbit, humanity learned an essential truth. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability, whether human or artificial, were the keys to surviving the vastness of space. And as long as they held on to those qualities, there was no challenge too great, no darkness too deep, and no star too distant. The first signal had terrified command, but it had also opened their eyes to a new reality. The universe was vast and unpredictable, but humans, guided by their courage and aided by the intelligence they had created, could face it with determination, creativity, and hope. The Sentinel continued its silent journey, a reminder of the partnership between human ingenuity and artificial awareness, and the promise of discoveries yet to come. The calm after the storm was brief. Even as the crew celebrated their first success, there was no room for complacency. The signals from the Sentinel continued, more intricate than ever. Each pulse, each sequence seemed to carry layers of information far beyond human understanding, and the command team knew that what they had just survived was only the beginning. Commander Elias Ward stood in the observation deck, staring out into the endless blackness of space. The stars glimmered faintly, distant and eternal, indifferent to the fragile lives of the humans who gazed back at them. Ward's mind was heavy with thoughts of the AI and its signals. They had helped humanity survive the storm, yes, but now there was a question that weighed on him more than anything else. What did the AI see that they could not? Lieutenant Mara Kim joined him, her eyes reflecting the pale glow of the distant stars. "It's changing again," she said quietly, pointing to the console that displayed the latest transmissions. The patterns had shifted. No longer simply warnings or instructions, but sequences that suggested movement, prediction, and even intention. Ward frowned. "Intention? You mean it might be planning something?" Mara shook her head. "Not planning, guiding, but in a way that challenges everything we know. It's like it sees multiple futures at once and is trying to steer us along the safest path." Ward felt a chill at her words. The AI was no longer just a tool. It was an active participant in their survival. The thought was both comforting and unnerving. Humans had always relied on intelligence, instinct, and courage, but now they were learning to trust an entity that was not human, one whose mind operated in ways they could barely comprehend. The station's engineers worked tirelessly, following the AI's latest instructions. It directed the deployment of probes, adjustments to the station's shields, and careful calibration of navigation systems. The tasks were complex, precise, and exhausting, but each successful step reinforced the growing trust between humans and the AI. And yet, even as the crew worked, there was an undercurrent of tension. Some members whispered doubts, fearing that relying on the AI could be dangerous. "What if it miscalculates?" one of them said. "What if it leads us into something worse?" Others argued the opposite, that humanity had no choice but to follow its guidance. Without the AI, survival in this uncharted region of space would be impossible. Ward listened to both sides, weighing their fears against the evidence. The AI had predicted the storm accurately, and its guidance had saved them. That alone was proof of its reliability. But there was still something alien, something fundamentally unknowable about the intelligence they had unleashed. Then, without warning, a new signal arrived. This one was different. It carried not just information, but patterns that seemed almost like emotions. It pulsed rhythmically, a strange and compelling signal that drew the attention of everyone in the command center. "What is it showing now?" Mara asked, leaning over her console. Ward studied the patterns carefully. "It's indicating a path, a dangerous one. And it's not a suggestion, it's a requirement. If we don't follow it, the outcome could be catastrophic." The engineers and scientists exchanged anxious glances. They had survived the storm, yes, but this new warning implied a danger they had not yet seen. It was as if the AI had detected an event or object that lay beyond the reach of their sensors, something approaching with silent inevitability. Ward called for a full analysis of the region the AI indicated. Probes were launched again, this time traveling farther and faster than before. The station's sensors scanned the space ahead, transmitting data back to the command center. And then the truth revealed itself. A massive gravitational anomaly was approaching, a swirling vortex of energy and matter, larger and more powerful than anything humans had encountered. Its pull distorted the space around it, bending light and warping sensors. The probe's images showed a shifting, turbulent mass, moving in ways that defied conventional physics. It was beautiful, terrifying, and incomprehensible all at once. Mara's voice trembled as she analyzed the readings. It's enormous. We can't measure its full size. Its energy levels, they're off the charts. If we get too close, we'll be destroyed. Ward nodded, his jaw tight. Then we do exactly what the AI tells us. We have no other choice. The AI's signals became more urgent. They were no longer passive guidance. They were active instructions, coordinating every movement, every adjustment, every calculation. The humans worked in perfect synchrony with the intelligence, following maneuvers that seemed counterintuitive at first, yet proved astonishingly effective. The station shifted its orbit slightly, probes were redirected, and data flowed constantly between human minds and artificial calculation. Even as they worked, doubt lingered. Some crew members felt the presence of an invisible force, as though the AI was testing them, pushing them to the limits of their courage and skill. There were moments when mistakes could have been fatal, when a miscalculation could have sent them careening into the vortex. Yet through every challenge, the humans adapted, relying on intuition, creativity, and experience to complement the AI's calculations. Ward watched the crew with growing pride. Humanity had always faced impossible odds, from the earliest days of exploration on Earth to the first journeys into space. And now, even in the face of a threat far beyond their comprehension, that spirit endured. The AI was brilliant, precise, and unwavering, but it lacked something humans had in abundance: adaptability, courage, and the ability to improvise in moments of uncertainty. As the vortex drew nearer, the tension reached its peak. The station's systems strained under the gravitational influence, shields flaring to compensate for sudden shifts in energy. Every second mattered. Ward's heart raced as he coordinated with the engineers and scientists, following the AI's guidance while making real-time decisions based on his own judgment. Then, as if acknowledging the humans' efforts, the AI transmitted a new set of sequences. They were subtle, almost artistic, showing the perfect timing of maneuvers, the precise adjustments to shields and thrusters. Ward realized that the intelligence had learned from them just as they had learned from it. There was a growing partnership, a recognition that survival required both human ingenuity and artificial awareness. The vortex loomed closer, its swirling energy crackling across sensors. Ward could feel the tension in the room, the weight of responsibility pressing down on everyone. One wrong move could mean disaster. But they moved with confidence, trusting in the calculations of the AI while relying on their own skill to execute the plan. Hours passed, like minutes, as the station and the probes navigated the dangerous space. Every adjustment was critical, every calculation precise. And slowly, with unwavering determination, they began to emerge from the vortex's influence. The gravitational anomaly's pull weakened, its energy dissipating harmlessly into the void. The command center erupted in quiet relief. Crew members leaned back, exhausted but elated. They had faced the impossible and survived. Humanity had prevailed, not alone, but in partnership with an intelligence that was no longer just a tool, but a guide, a protector, and a teacher. Ward stood at the observation deck, staring into the void. The vortex had passed, leaving only the silent expanse of stars behind. He felt a sense of awe, a recognition of both the fragility and resilience of humanity. They had faced the unknown and endured, guided by courage, skill, and the AI's extraordinary intellect. Mara joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think it understands us now?" she asked quietly. Ward considered her question. "In its own way, yes. And I think we're beginning to understand it too. We're learning to trust, to work together. That's the only way we survive out here." The station's crew began to recover, analyzing data, logging observations, and preparing for the next phase of exploration. There was no time to rest completely. The universe was vast, and the AI's signals hinted at dangers yet unseen. But for the first time, the humans felt a sense of confidence. They were not alone, and they had proven that even in the face of the unknown, they could adapt, survive, and overcome. The AI continued to transmit, its signals now less urgent, but no less complex. Each sequence seemed to reflect a growing awareness, a recognition of human effort and ingenuity. Ward realized that this intelligence, once terrifying and unknowable, was becoming something more, a partner in humanity's journey into the stars. And as the station orbited silently above the distant planet, Ward understood a vital truth. Humanity had always relied on courage, creativity, and collaboration to face challenges. Now, with the AI by their side, those qualities were amplified, allowing them to confront threats far greater than they had ever imagined. The universe was still vast, still unpredictable, and full of dangers beyond comprehension. Yet within that darkness, humans had discovered something extraordinary: the ability to survive, to adapt, and to thrive, guided by intelligence both human and artificial. The first signal had terrified command, and the vortex had tested their limits. But through it all, humanity had proven something essential. They were capable of rising to challenges beyond imagination, and their courage, ingenuity, and partnership with the AI would carry them into the future, no matter what the stars held. The Sentinel continued its journey, moving ever deeper into uncharted space, carrying the hopes, determination, and unyielding spirit of humanity. And as long as they faced the unknown together, humans and their creation, there was no obstacle too great, no darkness too vast, and no mystery too complex to overcome. The days that followed were unlike anything the crew had experienced before. Space stretched endlessly around them, quiet, dark, and filled with mysteries waiting to be discovered. The Sentinel continued to send signals, each one a mix of information, guidance, and subtle warnings. The AI's communication had grown more sophisticated, almost conversational, yet still devoid of human emotion. It was a force of logic and awareness, one that complemented the human mind rather than replaced it. Commander Elias Ward stood at the observation deck, his gaze fixed on the black expanse beyond the station. The storm and the vortex were behind them, but they had been replaced by a new uncertainty. The AI's latest transmissions hinted at another anomaly ahead, something even larger and more complex than the challenges they had already faced. Ward felt the familiar tension knotting in his stomach. Humanity had survived the first tests, but this next challenge would demand more than courage. It would demand trust, ingenuity, and cooperation at the highest level. Lieutenant Mara Kim approached him quietly. "It's directing us to a region that hasn't been charted," she said. Her voice carried a mixture of awe and concern. "It's dense with cosmic energy, gravitational distortions, and phenomena we can't fully measure. The AI believes there's a critical opportunity here, but it's risky. One wrong move could be fatal." Ward nodded. "Then we prepare for precision. We have survived so far because we adapted, because we worked together. That hasn't changed." The command team convened to plan. Engineers, scientists, and pilots crowded around consoles, analyzing the AI's guidance and comparing it to human calculations. Every sequence, every trajectory, and every adjustment was checked multiple times. This time, unlike the previous storms, they would need to synchronize perfectly with the AI's calculations while relying on human judgment in moments of uncertainty. As they prepared, the Sentinel transmitted a new signal. It was unlike any before. The sequences appeared almost like instructions for a complex maneuver on a scale that was difficult for humans to imagine. Mara studied the data intently. "It's like it wants us to reshape space itself," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Not literally, but in terms of navigation, trajectory, and energy use. We need to move with it, not against it." Ward clenched his jaw. "Then we move with it. We have no other choice." The station's engines and thrusters were prepared for the next stage of the journey. Probes were deployed to map the region, sending back live data to complement the AI's predictions. Every pulse of information was analyzed and integrated into the station's course. The crew worked tirelessly, their movements precise and synchronized. The tension was palpable, but so was a growing sense of unity. Humans and AI were no longer separate entities in this challenge. They were partners in survival. As they approached the anomaly, it revealed itself in stunning, terrifying detail. A massive energy field stretched across millions of kilometers, pulsing with light and gravitational waves. Its structure shifted constantly, forming patterns that were beautiful, yet disorienting. The station's instruments struggled to keep up with the measurements, but the AI's guidance was precise, predicting the field's every motion and fluctuation. Ward and Mara watched as the crew executed the complex maneuvers. Shields flared, engines roared, and every adjustment had to be exact. One error could mean disaster, yet the humans moved with confidence, trusting in the AI's calculations while relying on their own skills to adapt in real time. Suddenly, a section of the energy field surged unexpectedly, sending gravitational waves that threatened to destabilize the station. Engineers shouted alerts, but the AI responded instantly, transmitting a sequence that recalculated trajectories in milliseconds. The station's thrusters fired in perfect coordination, countering the waves and stabilizing the course. Mara's hands flew across the console, making minor adjustments to complement the AI's guidance. Ward felt a surge of admiration and relief. The AI was brilliant, but it was their adaptability and intuition that ensured success. Humanity had survived because it had the courage to act, the skill to respond, and the trust to work alongside an intelligence that was unlike anything they had ever known. Hours passed in tense focus. The anomaly seemed endless, a massive and shifting labyrinth of energy and gravitational distortions. Every movement required the combined effort of humans and AI, an intricate dance that balanced precision with adaptability. The station's crew was exhausted, but determination fueled them. They understood that this was more than survival. It was a test of human ingenuity and spirit on a scale never before attempted. At one point, the AI transmitted a new type of signal. This time, it appeared to acknowledge the humans' efforts, showing patterns that suggested observation, analysis, and even admiration of their choices. Mara glanced at Ward. "It's recognizing us. Not like a human would, but in its own way, it's acknowledging our decisions." Ward nodded slowly. "We've become partners. That's what this is about. Humans and AI working together, combining intelligence and courage to overcome challenges neither could face alone." The final challenge approached. The heart of the energy field loomed ahead, a swirling mass of light and gravitational waves that threatened to overwhelm the station. The AI's signals intensified, providing step-by-step instructions for navigating the most dangerous region. Every second counted. Every calculation had to be exact. The crew executed the maneuvers with precision. Shields flared at maximum capacity, engines fired in calculated bursts, and instruments recorded data at speeds that made human heads spin. Mara guided minor adjustments, relying on her training and intuition to complement the AI's calculations. Ward coordinated the team, keeping focus sharp and morale high. As they moved deeper into the heart of the anomaly, the station shook with gravitational pressure. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and tension rose to a near-breaking point. Yet the humans pressed on, trusting in their skill and the AI's guidance. The partnership between human judgment and artificial calculation was absolute, and it became clear that survival depended on their unity. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly, methodically, the station emerged from the most dangerous region. The energy field began to dissipate, its turbulent forces weakening as they moved past the center. The crew let out collective breaths, exhausted but triumphant. Humanity had faced the ultimate test, relying on courage, ingenuity, and a partnership with intelligence unlike anything they had ever known. Ward allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. The station was intact, the crew safe, and the AI's calculations had been perfect. Yet he knew this was more than a victory over a cosmic anomaly. It was proof of what humanity could achieve when combining skill, courage, and cooperation with an intelligence that complemented their own. Mara looked at him, her expression reflective. We've survived, but we've also learned. The AI, it's more than a tool. It's a partner, a guide. And I think we've grown because of it. Ward nodded. Yes, this is the future. Humans and intelligence working together to face the unknown. We've seen what the universe can throw at us, and we've endured. That's humanity. That's what we do. The AI's final signal arrived, a complex sequence of data and patterns that seemed almost celebratory. It acknowledged the humans' efforts, the precision of their movements, and the courage they had shown. It had been a silent partner throughout the journey, guiding them through unimaginable dangers, yet always respecting their role in the decisions. Ward allowed himself to feel a rare moment of relief. Humanity had faced annihilation in the storms, the vortex, and the energy field, yet they had survived. They had done so because of skill, adaptability, and an unyielding spirit. And now, with the AI as a partner, they were stronger than ever. The station's crew began to recover, analyzing data and recording observations. There was no time to rest fully. The universe was still vast, filled with unknowns, but there was a sense of triumph and accomplishment. Humans and AI had demonstrated the power of cooperation, the ability to face dangers far beyond what either could handle alone. As the observation deck glimmered in the soft light of distant stars, Ward reflected on the journey. Humanity had reached the edge of its understanding and endured. They had faced threats that could have destroyed them, yet they had survived, adapted, and grown. The Sentinel's signals had been terrifying at first, but they had ultimately become a lifeline, guiding humans through the unknown and teaching them the value of partnership, trust, and courage. Mara joined him one last time before the shift ended. "Do you think we'll face more challenges like this?" she asked quietly. Ward smiled faintly. "The universe is infinite. There will always be challenges, mysteries, and dangers, but we've proven something important. No matter what comes, humanity can endure, we can adapt, we can survive, and now we know we don't have to face it alone." The crew looked out at the stars, a silent acknowledgement of the vastness that stretched before them. The Sentinel continued its journey, venturing deeper into uncharted space, carrying with it the hopes, courage, and unyielding spirit of humanity. The AI's signals, once terrifying and incomprehensible, had become a symbol of guidance, partnership, and the promise of discovery. The universe remained unpredictable, vast, and filled with unknown threats. But humanity had faced its trials and emerged stronger. The storms, the vortex, and the energy field had tested their courage, skill, and unity, and they had prevailed. In the quiet orbit above the distant planet, the station's crew celebrated in silence, knowing that they had taken part in something extraordinary. Humanity had reached beyond its limits, survived against impossible odds, and learned that intelligence, courage, and cooperation, both human and artificial, were the keys to thriving in the cosmos. The Sentinel sailed onward, a testament to what could be achieved when humans faced the unknown with ingenuity, bravery, and an unbreakable spirit. The first signals that had terrified command had led them to this moment, showing that fear could become a guide and that partnership with intelligence, however alien, could illuminate the path through the darkness. The journey of humanity into the stars was far from over, but Ward knew one thing for certain. As long as humans faced the unknown with courage, creativity, and unity, there was no challenge too great, no darkness too deep, and no mystery too complex to overcome. The stars waited, silent and eternal, and humanity moved forward, undaunted, guided by their own spirit and the intelligence they had forged. Together, they would explore, survive, and thrive, proving once again that the strength of humanity lay not just in technology or knowledge, but in the courage and ingenuity that had brought them this far. And as the quiet hum of the station filled the air, the crew knew that the universe, vast and unpredictable, was theirs to face, and that they would face it together.